pleasant good afternoon. Welcome to the Apnu+Afc Live as we continue to bring you the information update as it relates to the national recount examination of the ballot boxes as we move into stage 4 of the process, which is essentially the chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission issuing a declaration after receiving the report from the CEO, Mr. Keith Lowenfield.
But Chris, I see people out there celebrating. The declaration has not been made as yet.
Well, people, and I mean, we live in some strange time these days, comrade. What else could I say? All right, so earlier today we did bring you that sort of in-depth knowledge guidance so that persons could be fully aware in terms of the procedure and the exercise that we're currently a part of. So let us start off on this note. Yesterday, when the Ghana Elections Commission had a meeting, that duly constituted meeting, which had the commissioners and the chairperson, of course, that meeting, they deliberated on the report which is submitted by the Chief Elections Officer, Mr. Keith Lowenfield. At the end of that meeting yesterday, the Ghana Elections Commission did not, I repeat, did not make a declaration of any results of the elections. Therefore, there's no person who have been identified as President-elect, President-select, or President-inject, if we can say so. So essentially from the meeting, the Ghana Elections Commission issued a statement. Is that what you're going through?
Yeah, I was trying to find it. Yeah.
Okay, so the Ghana Elections Commission issued a statement yesterday afternoon after the conclusion of that meeting. And of course, in the statement that was put out, it stated there that the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission requests of the Chief Elections Officer, Mr. Keith Lowenfield, to submit his report based on Section 96 of the Constitution. And of course, we did provide you that little read as what exactly is the Section 96, because a lot of persons keep hearing these articles being quoted in terms of the Constitution. But what does it mean? All right, so quickly again, for the benefit of the viewers, and of course, you can't repeat one thing over and over by accident. It's deliberate so that persons could be fully aware. Knowledge is power. And once you have knowledge, you can make informed decisions. Yeah?
Correct.
All right. So yesterday, the Ghana Elections Commission, in the statement that was issued, the chairperson requested of the CEO, Mr. Keith Lowenfield, to submit his report under Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act. What does that mean? The Representation of the People's Act 96 speaks to the Chief Elections Officer shall calculate the total number of valid votes of the electors which have been cast for each list of candidates, and thereupon shall ascertain the results of the elections in accordance with Section 97 and 98. Yeah? Keywords here is total number of valid votes.
Right. Chris, and one of the things that the public has to understand is that we were in uncharted waters for all intents and purposes. It has been an unprecedented election and historical in many regards. There isn't an election that we can point to in the Caribbean region where there has not been a declaration, but there is a recount of this nature that we've all undertaken. And the CARICOM observer team themselves spoke to the fact that what we actually were involved in was an audit and not a recount. That's their words, that we were involved in an audit and not a recount. And so whether the law applies strictly as it should have in ordinary circumstances,
that's correct,
remains to be seen. But what we do know is that it's an unprecedented election. For the most part, we were in uncharted waters, and so we are forging ahead despite whatever difficulties there might be. As you know by now, when this press statement came out of GCOM yesterday, there was lots of uncertainty. GCOM commissioners themselves wanted more clarity on the statement, and so it was expected and understood that members of the public like you might have been unclear as well. But for the most part, what we know at this hour is what we knew yesterday, that the Chief Elections Officer was asked mainly to produce this report that puts us in the final stage of the national recount. And two, the chairwoman set aside the idea that the elections could be annulled by GCOM. And the third thing that she spoke to very specifically was the fact that some of the irregularities could not be investigated by GCOM, even though they were of a serious nature. And she did say that she was hopeful that they could be addressed.
Correct.
And which brings us again back to the main issue coming out of this, emanating from this press statement out of GCOM, was the chairman producing the chief elections officer rather, producing his report based on section 96, which Chris tells us very clearly deals with the whole notion of valid votes. I mean, by the time we are finished, you guys are going to be constitutional scholars on local legislation, on GCOM issues. You are going to be experts. And so, you know, there's where we are.
Yeah.
What constitutes valid vote? And that is the talk of the town. You go into a barber shop, you stop on the street, you go in the supermarket, people want to know, what does this valid vote mean? And you were explaining.
Right. So essentially, like was being explained to you during the process of the national recount, when we brought to you those breaking stories of missing documentation, the only way in which the Ghana Elections Commission, and mind you, at every workstation at the Archichon Conference Center, GCOM staffers were present. In fact, those GCOM staffers were the supervisors. And there was two set of documentation that they were looking for. There was the observations in terms of anomalies and so forth, and there was what they call critical documentation, in which the GCOM staffers would have been looking for. For example, if at a particular polling station you had 100 eligible electors to vote there, when you open the boxes, you will find 100 ballots inside of the box. But the way in which you now be able to bring credibility or validate those votes is that you will have to find the OLE, which is the official list of electors. The official list of electors is used by the presiding officer, and he or she will tick the names of the persons as they come to vote. So if, for example, in a ballot box, you have 100 votes that were cast, the OLE will show you 100 names that were ticked. Equally, you will also find what is called the counterfoil. The counterfoil is similar to that of a check. You know, when you write a check and you tear out, you're left with that stub. So that stub is what they refer to as the counterfoil. So if, for example, again, in the ballot box you have 100 votes or 100 ballots, you must find on the OLE those 100 names that were ticked. As well, you will find the 100 counterfoil that would match those ballots. That's how you would bring credibility, or that's how you were able to validate those 100 votes. So we set that aside. In the box as well, you might have found 103 ballots. So you need to know how these additional 3 ballots got inside of the box. Then you refer to what is called the certificate of employment. Because likely, the 3 extra ballots that you found might have been cast by GCOM staffers who worked at that particular polling station, which is outside of their electoral district. So once you find inside of the box those 3 certificates of employment, that is how you will be able to bring or validate the additional 3 votes inside of the box, because you have the counterfoil, you have the certificates of employment. So you set that aside. But then inside the box, outside of the 100 votes, outside of the 3 additional votes, you found another additional 32 ballots inside of the box. And you need to know now how those ballots got in there and if they're valid votes. When you refer to what is called the intermixing polling station, and you find that this particular polling station is an intermixing station, and you find that in terms of the intermixing, this station received 32 additional ballots, which is the discipline services ballot. So that now will bring credibility or validate those additional 32 ballots that have been found in the box. Yeah? So quickly again, the first 100 is the 100 eligible voters. You've confirmed that they are valid votes because on the OLE, those names are ticked off. The counterfoil matches the ballots. So you cross-reference and you come back to that number. You found 3 additional ballots. Likely, those could be ballots that were cast or votes that were cast by the GCOM staffers. And the only way you could bring validity to those 3 additional ballots, you have to find what is called the certificate of employment. So once you find those three ballots now become valid. Then when you find the 32 additional ballots, likely the station was an intermixing station, and those could be discipline services ballots. Once you confirm that your polling station was a intermixing station and 32 ballots were sent to that station, that is then you will able to bring validity or validate that additional 32 votes. Put all of that together, that in a nutshell is how votes are valid.
Yep.
Valid votes cast because you can confirm that they were legitimately cast by an eligible elector who was entitled to cast a vote.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I want to pick out a part of the Chief Elections Officer's report. We did say from the beginning that we are in uncharted waters. It's been an unprecedented election, historical by any measure, because when you read the Chief Elections Officer's report, in district after district, he ends the report by saying, for instance, that it cannot be ascertained that the results of District 4, Mahika Burris, meets the standard of fair and credible elections.
Correct.
And then you have the chairman of GCOM, on the other hand, saying that GCOM doesn't have the capacity to do investigations or to determine whether the process is illegal. And so, again, that would be historic. We're from District 1, which is Region 1, all the way to District 10, which is Region 10. In every instance, the Chief Elections Officer has said that the results does not meet the standard of fair and credible election. But just to point out an aspect of, for instance, Region 4 here, he says that the Commission had intended to reconcile, which is what Chris is talking about, ballots cast for the list of candidates with statutory documents, again what Chris was talking about, and it was discovered that 47 boxes from the polling stations in sub-district East Coast Demerara, the absence of key statutory documents rendered the reconciliation of those 11,566 votes contained therein, which were allocated to the 9 list of candidates, the missing documents, sorry, I'm mixing up my text here, list of candidates, yes, he found it impossible and consequently void for accuracy. He found the reconciliation process, because they were missing the statutory documents. He found the reconciliation process impossible and consequently void for accuracy. So again, that is the process that Chris was outlining there. And now the CEO tells us how he got to say that these votes could not be reconciled and as a result were void for the want of accuracy again. You could not determine how they were placed in the ballot box.
That's right. So that is how the question comes back in terms of valid votes. And of course, the Ghana Elections Commission, as we mentioned, at every workstation, they had 4 GCOM staffers who were present. And those very statutory documents, that is what essentially they were looking for, because that is the only means in which GCOM could reconcile the votes cast or ballots found with the documentation. And of course, you know, we spoke to you about PE1, PE2, PE4, PE7, PE11, and the list goes all the way up to PE21. And every one of those PE is essentially a statutory document that has to be found so that you can cross-reference and reconcile votes that have been cast.
And not only have we said it, but we had Mr. Jaggi who said it as well, that GCOM is an institution that determines the method of verification.
That's right.
And GCOM set out systematically in the recount order how it will verify these documents. Again, just picking up on some of the thoughts, schools of thoughts that are out there on what happens next. And this is some commentary by former magistrate and attorney at law, Mr. Maxwell Edwards. He says in a piece that is public knowledge by now that the CEO, Mr. Keith Lowenfield, was not and is not pretending to act on no evidence. The evidence is there for all to see, except those with some political blinkers on. That's what he has said. He said, none of the evidence adduced from the national recount is imagined or hypothetical. They are all real, relevant, and admissible by the CEO in the discharge of his constitutional and statutory functions to prepare a report for the advice of GCOM. He goes on to say a little later on in the document that the chair has no source of relevant admissible evidence on which to base her declaration other than on the CEO's report. In another section of the essay that he has written, he says, the point cannot be stressed enough that it is not for the chairman, it is for GCOM to determine by reference to valid votes which list has won. The determination, that determination is the clear, unambiguous constitutional responsibility and duty of the chief elections officer. Again, just to repeat what the thoughts of Mr. Maxwell Edwards, former magistrate, he says, the point cannot be stressed enough that it is not for the chairman, it is not for GCOM to determine, but it is not for GCOM to determine by reference to valid votes, to valid votes, yes, which list has won. That determination is clear, unambiguous, constitutional responsibility and duty of the chief elections officer.
That's right. So again, now coming out of the press release that was issued by the Ghana Elections Commission yesterday, and it stated there that the chairperson, Justice Claudette Singh, has requested from the CEO, Mr. Keith Lowenfield, to submit his report based on Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act. And just to quickly go through that again, the 96, the Representation of the People Act states, and I quote, the Chief Elections Officer shall calculate the total number of valid votes of electors which have been cast for each list of candidates, and thereupon shall ascertain the results of the elections in accordance with Section 97 and 98. Now, this is the report that the CEO has to submit to the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission based on what is set out there in 96 of the Representation of the People's Act. Now, I want to share this with you in terms of the chairperson making a declaration. And it's stated here in the Constitution that the presidential candidate shall be deemed to be elect as president and shall be declared by the chairman of the Elections Commission, acting only in accordance with the advice of the Chief Elections Officer after such advice has been tendered to the Elections Commission at a duly constituted meeting. So again, the chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission, it is not a case in which the chairperson is presiding over and will choose or pick and choose. Her declaration, based on the Constitution, is guided on the advice of the CEO. And that, in terms of the CEO, is his report, as in terms of Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act, the total number of valid votes. So that is the modus operandi. And of course, tomorrow's exercise is essentially stage 4 of the whole national recount. We did mention to you that it's 4 legs, 4 stages. Stage 1 was at the Artichon Conference Center. Stage 2 is the CEO's report, which has been submitted on Saturday. Stage 3 is what we saw yesterday and the day before, the deliberation between the commissioners as it relates to the report. And stage 4, final stage, is in which the chairperson will make a declaration acting only on the advice of the CEO, as stated in the Constitution. And of course, as it relates to Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act, he has to calculate the total number of valid votes.
Yep. And there is where we are at this hour. We had intended to have a major statement for you but we aren't going to have that at this hour. I think we're going to have it a little later on in
Correct.
the afternoon, Chris.
Correct. Just around 6 o'clock or 6:05, in probably just half an hour from now, there will be a statement that is going to be issued by the co-campaign manager, Mr. Joseph Harmon. And of course, that is going to be carried live here on the APNU-AFC TV. We hope that our affiliate will be able to carry it via those television stations and, of course, the radios as well. So that is going to be happening in just half an hour from now. A statement from the co-campaign manager of the APNU-AFC, Mr. Joseph Harmon. Immediately once that starts, we will come back to you live and bring you that statement live in just about half of an hour or 45 minutes from now. So just stay tuned, stay close to the page, and of course we will bring you that information as it unfolds.
But hold the focus.
Yeah. All right. So before we go, so that is on this note. So yesterday we played that piece from Analytica.
Yeah.
Right, which was a very telling, detailed interview that was done by this young lady who was part of that forum.
Brittany.
Right, and essentially she highlighted that she started working with this company for and on behalf of the People's Progressive Party Civic before the 2015 general and regional elections. Now, mind you, Analytica is similar to that of Mercury. So the People's Progressive Party, since in the 2015 elections, started this move by having these lobbying firms or these data analysis company work in terms of setting people's mind as it relates to the elections in Guyana, elections meddling and all of that. So we want to play this piece for you, and when we come back, we're going to have a brief discussion on that.
It's very, very instructive, folks. Take a listen. And just to add to what Chris has said, that 2015's Analytica is 2020's Mercury.
That's right.
Take a listen. Very informative.
Right. So in 2013, the SCL group, or Cambridge Analytica, first started having discussions with President Ramatar, and while engaging with the People's Progressive Party, the PPP, who the president was a part of that party, they conducted the type of political research that I talked to you about earlier. They did a behavioral poll and what they call a target audience analysis, a TAA, and that is large-scale national research where they would have done those qualitative focus groups and then quantitative surveys in order to understand as much as possible about the population, from their politics to their culture to their affiliations, the way that they do their decision making, and the way that really the country functions, the way that citizens engage in society. And that allowed them to build out an entire election strategy based on what they found out from that research. And from here, it looks like in 2014 was when they first presented the whole strategy, and it was a full strategy for 2015 from what types of engagement the party would need to have with people, from campaign management, how you could continue to gain insights from the population, what you needed to put on your billboards and print media and radio and television and digital. So they handed over all of that intelligence to the PPP so that they could use that for all of their communication strategy. And they developed a team for in-country and external support. So the SCL group would usually send out a satellite team to the country that would work with the candidate and the team that was in Guyana. And then there would be support from the headquarters in London for everything from data collection and analysis to management and digital and TV and development of campaign content, strategic hiring, whatever needed to happen. And that's really the way that ran quite a lot of campaigns, providing limited in-person support, and then the rest of it would have been done from abroad, which, not all countries actually allow political support from abroad or even political support from foreigners. So it's usually a satellite team that can be hidden in country and is not obvious to the opposition that foreign assistance is active.
And how much money did the PPP spend on this?
This particular campaign was $420,000 for the support specifically that Cambridge would have given, and they would have spent a lot more than that on their local team and on the actual ad spend. So this is just the money to get the Cambridge Analytica support, but that's not how much money they're spending on, TV, digital, billboards, rallies, fundraising events, all of that stuff. This is a drop in the ocean to what the full campaign budget looks like.
The PPP hired Cambridge Analytica quite late in the election and didn't implement all of the directives coming out from London, so the PPP went on to lose to the African-dominated party, the APNU. So I want to know, why do you think the PPP weren't successful in their election in 2015?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of reasons for an election loss. One is that you don't prepare ahead of time. Another is that you haven't spent enough money, and the other is that you do not have a good enough candidate. And I would really say, there can be a combination of all of the above. From what I can see in the documents that I'm looking at, it seemed like the PPP was going to have a really hard time in that election, regardless of whether they had support or not. That they were having trouble engaging with their base, and a lot of people were completely unconvinced by President Ramatar's effectiveness in office.
So for someone sitting at home right now, is there a way of identifying the tricks these companies might be using in your elections? Is there something we can keep an eye out for?
Well, I would say these days it is kind of difficult to tell, because it used to be easier when there was a lot more work on the ground and you could actually see, foreign people in a country doing political work. That's obviously the biggest telltale sign. But these days, so much work is done digitally, and there is so much micro-targeting, which means that you are shown content that is made just for you, or just for a very small group of people like you, that the person next to you is not going to see the same political ads as you do. And therefore, it's not going to be very obvious to you that there's tons of different political ads being cut, that there's an entire strategy behind it, because you can only see what is meant to be engaging for you. And it's this kind of invisibility, this lack of transparency, that is the most dangerous in what a friend of mine, Dr. Emma Bryant, calls the influence industry. And it usually has tons of funding being plowed into it, but you can't tell that it's happening, and that's why it is so effective.
So Cambridge Analytica collapsed due to public outrage, but I'm assuming a lot of the infrastructure and data strategies are still available somewhere. Is there another Cambridge Analytica out there working right now?
Quiet.
Welcome back. That was, of course, the Cambridge Analytica. Of course, that company was hired by the People's Progressive Party Civic before the 2015 general and regional elections. We showed you that piece because, of course, we have been bringing you excerpt of that agreement, which was signed between the People's Progressive Party Civic and, of course, Mercury, which is the lobbying firm out of the United States. We showed you extracts of that Mercury agreement, which is stated clear that Mercury for and on behalf of the People's Progressive Party Civic will be lobbying the executive branch of the United States government, the Organization of American States. So we say that, or we showed you those to remind you that nothing that is happening in these elections is by accident. When you saw those tweets from senators in the United States that we never heard of before, when you hear pronouncement from the OAS, Organization of American States, it is named in that document as one of the organizations in which Mercury will be lobbying for and on behalf of the People's Progressive Party Civic in these elections. When in detail in that document, it also speaks to having those same senators of the United States issue statements and tweets on behalf of the People's Progressive Party Civic. So nothing is happening by accident. It is called geopolitics. All right. So there is a disturbing video that has been making the rounds from last evening. Of course, we want to quickly just say to you that viewers' discretion is advised because the language used in this video is of such. But of course, we want to show you this video, and when we come back, we will give you some development as it relates to this video that is making the rounds on social media. Viewers' discretion is advised. Please excuse the language that is used.
We gonna have a grand time light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come.
All right, welcome back. Again, we apologize for the language used in that piece. The video shows there clearly an individual with sophisticated rifles, weapons, guns, armory. And of course, this can only be somebody in the Ghana Defense Force or the Ghana Police Force. But of course, we're learning now that the individual, in terms of the voice that you heard here, is Mr. Royston Kingston. German Kingston. The name has been given as German Kingston, as someone residing out of the Mahaica Berbice region. And we want to show you this update video to that one. All right, welcome back. So we'll get the video and we'll just show you clearly the operators are still working on that. Of course, earlier you saw the video in which the person is displaying sophisticated high-powered weapon, ammunition. And of course, the name is given as German Kingston out of the Mahaica Berbice region. The second video that we're working on to show you right now is an update to that video. The CID, the Criminal Investigation Department, has just made an arrest of the said person, Mr. German Kingston, who has been seen or heard in that video displaying high-powered weapons. Quickly, when the operators get that footage, we will show it to you. Again, this is all part of the People's Progressive Party civic fear tactic. And these are the persons who are claiming that they want to govern this country. Many Guyanese, all and sundry, can recall what this country, what this nation went through under the 23 years of the People's Progressive Party civic. So we want to quickly loop the first video. We want to bring back the first video to you, and then we'll bring you the second one. Operators, have the first video, please.
We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, oh light tonight, oh light, oh the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condemn the one come out, don't fucking come out now. We gonna have a grand time, all night tonight, all night to... All of the blow, blow, blow. Blow, blow, got blow by. Must condom in the one come out. Don't fucking come out now.
All right, welcome back again. We apologize for the language used in that piece, but of course the voice is that of Mr. German Kingston out of the Mahaica-Berbice region. And of course the young man there is displaying high-powered weapon and is not a member of the Ghana Defense Force or the Ghana Police Force or any of the security services in the country. German Kingston is the name that has been given. And we'll ask the operator now to bring you the second video just when that video is ready. We must tell you now that the video or the footage that we're showing you is courtesy of HGPTV Nightly News. We downloaded it from their page. I think it's based on an investigative journalist, Mr. Travis Chase. And of course, this evening on channel 67, Nightly News, you will have an in-depth report as it relates to this young man, Mr. German Kingston, who has been arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department. Again, this is part of the People's Progressive Party civic fear tactic to scare people. And of course, this young man is one of their supporters who has been championing the call for the People's Progressive Party civic. All and sundry, this nation can recall what we went through in 23 years under the People's Progressive Party civic, in which individuals like German Kingston, not being a member of the Ghana Defense Force or the Ghana Police Force, but moving around in vehicle with high-powered weapon and ammunition, showing there clearly on display. We're being told that he's out of the Mahaica-Berbice region, German Kingston, and that video showed you there with him displaying high-powered weapons. This is the state. This is the People's Progressive Party civic, one of its supporters clearly trying their scare tactic. That is the People's Progressive Party civic that we know. That is the real PPP. Here now is the second video.
That's not man. That's not man. That's not man.
Young man in the red shirt is German Kingston from the Mahaica-Berbice region. Just earlier we showed you that video with him displaying high-powered weapons and ammunition. And of course we did ask you to excuse the language that was used in that video. But this video here is German Kingston, the same young man who voice has been heard while he was displaying those high-powered weapons and ammunition, has been arrested by the Criminal Investigative Department just this afternoon. And of course the footage that you're seeing there is him being taken out of the bus into the Criminal Investigation Department. Again, the video is courtesy of HGPTV channel 67, an investigative journalist, Mr. Travis Chase. And of course we downloaded these images from their Facebook page. This evening on HGPTV channel 67 News, you will have an in-depth reporting as it relates to this young man seen here. German Kingston from the Mahaica-Berbice region is the man who has been seen in that video that is now viral, with him displaying these high-powered weapon and ammunition. And of course, there was certain language used in that piece. The young man was heard saying that they don't want to come out. They will effing come out now, as he displays these high-powered weapon and ammunition. So again, breaking news at this time, Mr. German Kingston The young man seen there in the red shirt with the handcuff on has been arrested by the Criminal Investigative Department. The young man is proclaimed to be a member and supporter of the People's Progressive Party Civic, and of course the video that went viral just last evening was part of the PPP's scare tactic being deployed all across the country. Again, Jermaine Kingston has been arrested by the Criminal Investigative Department, seen there in that red shirt and the handcuff on. And the video on your left is the high-powered weapons and ammunition that he displayed while singing the jingle familiar with the Apnu+Afc. And as he stated, and I quote, "They don't want to come out, they will effing come out now," as he displayed these high-powered weapons and ammunition. His name is Jermaine Kingston from the Mahaica-Berbice region, seen there with the red shirt on, handcuffed, and of course he has been arrested by the Criminal Investigative Department. One supporter of the People's Progressive Party Civic, Mr. Jermaine Kingston, seen there, taken out of the bus by members of the Ghana Police Force and taken into the Criminal Investigative Department after he has been arrested for the video that went viral in which he displays high-powered weapons and ammunition. As he stated, and I quote, "They don't want to come out, they will effing come out now." A member of the People's Progressive Party Civic and all part of the PPPC's criminal tactic or scare tactic or fear mongering that they have deployed across the length and breadth of this country. Many Guyanese are familiar with these images. Many Guyanese are familiar with these images for over the past 23 years when the People's Progressive Party Civic was in power. This was the norm, a normal basis. Young people being shot down in the street wantonly, police association with criminal, drug lords, etc. It's the same thing being played out again. And these are the persons who want to become the government of the day. This is a grim reminder of what was obtained under the People's Progressive Party civic governance of this country. So again, for those of you just joining us, the high-powered weapon being displayed there on your left are the ammunition and guns that was displayed by Jermaine Kingston, a youngster from the Mahaica-Berbice region. He's being described as a member of the People's Progressive Party Civic. And of course, in the video on the left with the high-powered weapon, he made a statement, I quote, "They don't want to come out, they will effing come out now." The video on the right is just moments ago with him being taken into the Criminal Investigation Department, in which he has been arrested. He's wearing that red shirt, and of course he has a handcuff on. Jermaine Kingston, the Mahaica-Berbice region. Again, the videos are courtesy of HGPTV Channel 67, investigative journalist Mr. Travis Chase. And of course, this evening, HGPTV Channel 67 will have an in-depth report as it relates to Jermaine Kingston, the young man seen there arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department for displaying those high-powered weapons and ammunition that you see there. All right. So we continue to watch those images, and of course we try to get more details and more information as they unfold. Okay. All right. All right, so we just quickly getting some information following the circulation of the above video on social media today, in which the firearm was displayed and also threats of violence were made. This is the statement from the Ghana Police Force as it relates to the video that went viral just last evening. They mentioned that in which firearms was on display, also which threats of violence was made. The Ghana Police Force promptly commenced a thorough investigation. So far, the investigation has arrested a 26-year-old. So this individual here in the red shirt is 26-year-old male. In the statement, they don't give the name, but the name has been given to us as Jermaine Kingston. Yeah? Right, so it's also stated that the firearm that you see on display belongs to a private security firm. We have been talking a lot about these private security firms having high-powered weapons. Sometimes you see them displaying high-powered weapons that you don't even see in the Guyana Police Force and so forth. So again, quickly, the statement from the Guyana Police Force following the circulation of the above video on social media today, in which a firearm was on display and also where threats of violence was made. The Guyana Police Force promptly commenced a thorough investigation. So far, investigators have arrested a 26-year-old male and seized a number of firearms belonging to a private security firm. Of course, they will give you more details as it unfolds. All right, so operators can come back to me. And we thank you very much. So again, the videos that you see on display there is courtesy of HGPTV Nightly News and of course investigative journalist Mr. Travis Chase. This evening they will have an in-depth report as it relates to this late-breaking story there. 26-year-old Jermaine Kingston from the Mahaica-Berbice region has been arrested by the Criminal Investigative Department after the video that went viral with him displaying firearm high-powered weapons and ammunition there. All right, so we're gonna leave it there for now. As we mentioned to you, just in about 15 to 20 minutes from now, we will have a statement from the co-campaign manager, Mr. Joseph Harmon, as it relates to the new development as we watch and await the CEO's report, which will come tomorrow. Immediately, once Mr. Harmon gets here, we will come back on the page live. So, of course, we ask you to stay tuned, stay focused, and hold a steady as we await the arrival of the co-campaign manager, Mr. Joseph Harmon. Until a few minutes from now, goodbye for now.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, in Guyana and across the diaspora. The press statement today is headed, "The GCOM CEO must declare only valid votes." On Tuesday, the chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission, Justice retired Claudette Singh, gave her decision on the Chief Elections Officer report concerning the national recount process of ballots that were cast at the March 2nd elections in Guyana. In her two-page decision, the chairman concluded, and I quote, "In light of the foregoing and in keeping with Order 60 of 2020 and its addendum dated the 29th of May 2020, I hereby request the Chief Elections Officer to prepare and submit to the Commission a report to ascertain the results of the elections under Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act, Chapter 103. Later in the afternoon, the chairman wrote the CEO in these terms, and I quote, "Pursuant to Article 177(2)(b) of the Constitution and Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act, Chapter 103, you are hereby requested to prepare and submit your report by 1300 hours on 18th of June 2020, using the results of the recount for consideration by the Commission." During the recount process, it will be recalled that the Partnership for National Unity and the Alliance for Change provided cogent and irrefutable evidence of electoral fraud perpetrated by the People's Progressive Party before and during the 2020 general and regional elections. Let me remind you of some of those issues which cannot and must not be discounted. 1. Counterfoils on ballots carrying the same number. The discovery of wrong lists in ballot boxes for votes cast at different places. Ballots for one region cast in another region. Dead persons voting. Persons who were not present in Guyana on the 2nd of March voting. We provided all this information to GCOM, asking for them to investigate and pronounce on these issues, which were a part of the electoral body's own records. GCOM investigated and were provided with independent proof of our claim by the Commissioner of Police. We have written more than 25 letters to the Elections Commission on these matters. And these matters are confirmed in the Chief Elections Officer report to the Guyana Elections Commission concerning our contention of fraud, which states, among other things, and I quote, "In respect of the allegation of voter impersonation, responses from the Chief Immigration Officer and review of the General Registrar's Office deceased reports confirmed that these were of substance." And this is from the CEO's report. Further, the CEO stated, and I quote, "Finally, the summation of anomalies and instances of voter impersonation identified clearly does not appear to satisfy the criteria of impartiality, fairness, and compliance with provisions of the Constitution and the Representation of the People's Act, Chapter 103. Consequently, on the basis of the votes counted and the information furnished from the recount, it cannot be ascertained that the results in all the districts meet the standard of fair and credible elections." End of quote. This is from the Chief Elections Officer report to the Commission. My fellow Guyanese, Section 96 of the Representation of the People's Act directs that the Chief Elections Officer shall calculate the number of valid votes of electors which have been cast for each list of candidates, and thereupon shall ascertain the results of the elections. We are saying that the Chief Elections Officer, given his own report to the Commission and the subsequent request of the Chairman, must use only the votes that had all supporting statutory documents in the ballot boxes when they were recounted. These, by law, are the only valid votes in a clearly tainted process. Impure and illegal votes cannot be used to arrive at valid votes and a legal result. As I also said on Tuesday night, GCOM has not made a declaration on the outcome of these elections. We now await the report of the Chief Elections Officer to the Commission and remain optimistic for a favorable outcome to this process for the good of all Guyanese. We continue to urge restraint by all Guyanese, be they our supporters or any other party supporters. We ask that you exercise restraint as we await the declaration by the Chairman of the Elections Commission. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.